I'm about to show you should disturb you. When African researchers point out what appears to be recent and deliberate destruction of ancient Egyptian artifacts, we're often laughed at or sometimes just ignored, or just told that it's iconoclasm and it was done in ancient times. However, this is the tomb of Irukapta, also known as the tomb of Khenu, when it was discovered in 1940. Now, I want to draw your attention to these dark-skinned men along the top here. You can see they're in perfect preservation. They're holding leopard skins, which is an African tradition which is practiced across the continent. And I just want you to note that there's a completely different complexion that they have. They're much darker than the statues lined up along the bottom here. However, fast forward to present day and you can see cement has been deliberately smeared all along the top. The complexion of the men has changed to this medium red. So since its discovery a couple of generations ago, the tomb has gone from perfect preservation to unrecognizable mess. Now, is that iconoclasm or is that deliberate wanton destruction?
There has been a centuries-old effort to remove African people from the source of civilization, for indeed it did emerge there.
The American president is not a Native American. He's not indigenous to America. He's not an aboriginal or original American. Likewise, in Egypt, we are dealing with people who invaded Egypt around 638 AD, and very few of them have anything whatsoever to do with the Pyramid Age, with the remarkable achievements of the early Egyptians. We have to make a very clear distinction between the modern Egyptian and the ancient Egyptian.
What can be done to restore African people to our correct place in the historical timeline? How can we reconnect Africa to the history of Egypt? The African continent is ancient and storied. Life began here, as did civilization itself. The arts, sciences and mathematics were birthed on her soil. Ancient Egypt was a cradle of knowledge that shaped the world.
When we think of Africa today, we often imagine tradition, while the rest of the world is roaring into the future, driven by robotics, advanced manufacturing, and artificial intelligence.
I flew out to West Africa to interview one of our brightest scientific minds to find answers to that question. It was my privilege to gain some insights from head of Department of Mathematics at the University of Ghana. Dr. Chisara is just one of many brilliant minds calling for a renaissance in African science. It's time for Africa to reclaim its legacy as a leader in mathematics, science and technology, ensuring that our innovations are seen, recognized and celebrated.
My name is Chisara Ogbogbo. I'm the head of department of Department of Mathematics, University of Ghana.
Professor, thanks very much for taking the time. What do you think of, and do you think it's important to connect the mathematics and science from African classical civilizations like Kemet to the rest of Africa? There have been so many heroic efforts to reconnect ancient Egypt to the African continent. What do you think of these efforts, and is it important to you personally to locate Kemet within an African framework or not?
Historically, we are told that civilization started from Egypt. I've been to Egypt and I'm marveled. I was in Egypt in 2019. I've been around different parts of the world, down to their great tourist places. So Egypt, wowed me. How did people in that time do this? You thinking the pyramid? Have you been to Egypt before?
No, not yet, but I will.
The pyramid, it's the best of mathematics I have ever seen. And look at the art of the monk. Those guys are still there. But I was made to understand they lost the art. That's what we're talking about.
Mm.
They don't know how it was done. But those people preserved there are still there. So it is very important to trace the civilization, the mathematics, to where it actually started. Do you know that our ancestors tallied? My grandmother showed me. That was how they counted their money. on the wall. It was mathematics. There was no white person to come and show them how to count. So she told me that even when somebody's owing you, you went to the wall and you made marks. And those marks represented a certain amount of money that the person needed to pay. And she showed me a number of shapes. If it is this shape, it means this. If it is this shape, it means that. And then the tallying also meant something. Is it not the same tallying that we use in statistics? Unfortunately, because the group that switched from people like my great-grandmother embraced the education brought by the West, they did not connect, because there was a lot that could have been learned, even about our own African mathematics. She was able to tell me when my father was born. There was no calendar. She was not literate, but she knew how they counted things. And when she finished, my father was able to identify his birthday. Unfortunately, there was a disconnect because we embraced Western education at the detriment of a very awesome one we could have developed. I will need to trace our steps back. That's one thing that we need to do. Present day African woman will rather wear whatever kind of wig that doesn't even look African.
But your life does not. Oh my God. Oh my God.
So we don't identify with our own uniqueness. We have all manner of things that are patented to Africa. People are not showing much interest in them. So we need to identify with our own uniqueness. So when we appreciate our own things, then the rest of the world have no choice. They have no choice. Trust me, if we can own our own uniqueness and our leaders stand up to say, we want to start now to be Africans. Because, the interesting thing is that we are never going to be Westerners. Never. No matter how much we want to copy what they are doing, how much we want to conform to whatever they want us to conform to, no matter how malleable we try to be in the midst of all of this, we are never going to be Westerners. And so the earlier we recognize who we are and identify with our own uniqueness, the better.
When you mention these things like the indigenous counting systems and things like the rain technology you mentioned before, which is pretty amazing, I want to investigate, but I'm also fearful that too much has been lost.
Well, we have to start from somewhere, and we have to make an effort. I am the kind of person who believes in, let's give it a shot, let's try.
Okay.
Let's try. Mm-hmm. And if we don't achieve whatever it was we set out to achieve, we would have made an effort. And who knows, the effort could just yield fruit.